Hi guys, let's talk about a hot topic. One of the hot topics at the moment is glutes, firing patterns. A glutes firing or a hamstrings firing, how do we measure that? Does it matter? Is it important? Let's just take a look at that for a moment. There are a number of different ways that you can actually look at this. You can identify whether the glutes are firing or not by getting somebody prone, getting them to do a straight leg raise backwards, so to speak, so the hips going into extension, with a finger on hamstrings, finger on glutes and finger on lower back. And you can identify which of those is firing. It's relatively subjective, but it's one way of doing it. Theoretically, hamstrings or glutes should fire up first before the erector spinae. And then there's a big debate whether hamstrings should fire up first or glutes and so on. There's another way of doing it where you lie supine and then you, with your legs out straight, and then you do a bridge, and the only thing that's left on the floor are your heels and your shoulders, and that will tell you whether glutes are firing up or not. Debatable, but those are the two ways that are actually used at the moment. But let's just take a step back for a moment. Let's try and find out, let's try and think about for a moment why they're not firing. There are a number of reasons why the glutes might not fire, and until you identify what they are, you're kind of wasting your time trying to understand whether they're firing or not. Let's find out why. One of the reasons why could be the fact that piriformis is in spasm as a consequence of a rotated pelvis. The pelvis should rotate forwards and backwards. When you take your leg back, the pelvis should rotate forwards and the spine should curve. When your leg goes forwards, the pelvis should rotate back and your spine should curve the opposite direction. There should be absolute synchronicity between the pelvis and the leg and the spine and how it moves. What can happen is that the pelvis can disorientate itself and you can have what's called a rotated pelvis or a dysfunctional pelvis. And it can rotate forwards and down. Piriformis and other muscles can go into spasm. As a consequence of that, you can get glute inhibition. As a consequence of that glute inhibition, you get all sorts of different running style issues. But I think that the important thing is to try and identify what else can cause these glutes not to fire. You can have a very stiff thoracic spine that could cause the glutes not to fire. QL spasm can cause glutes not to fire. If you've got spasm in the hip flexors, the reciprocal inhibition there will inhibit the glutes from firing. If you've got a problem with your sciatic nerve, and I don't mean sciatica, I mean the sciatic nerve is stiff or tight or tethered, then that also can cause the glutes not to fire. So there probably isn't a good test on the market to establish whether the glutes are firing or not. So it's very difficult to tell whether they are. But if you believe that they're not, there are a number of reasons why not. Let's actually look at why they're not firing rather than debate whether they are or not. Once people have the biomechanical capacity to allow them to fire, then the engine management chip, which is the most sophisticated computer technology ever invented, will decide whether it should be glutes first or hamstrings first. We'll decide whether one thing should be happening or another. We shouldn't really be artificially trying to fire things up. We should be trying to give people the biomechanical tools to allow the body to look after itself. And the engine management chip will do that for you.